So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into our introductions. And I just want to welcome everybody again. So this is Micah Mosier. I'm the Client Development Manager at Twin State Technical Services here in Davenport, Iowa. And what we do here is, go ahead and go to the next slide, Mike, if you would. But just real quick, a quick introduction. What we do is what we promise, and what we deliver is great people. So it's really fun to work with our clients and peers and providing top products and training. So I had mentioned earlier that we do monthly client events. We partner and present and have our own experts present on topics that we get as hot topics from our audiences, and go ahead and bring that right to you so you can get this concise and consolidated energy and information in a quick time frame. So stay tuned to our newsletters, and I'll send a link, and you'll see a link here shortly. And then the most important thing is that we want to work on your goals with this training, but we also want to hear, and please feel free to use the chat to inject any of your own experiences, questions, or comments during this. And again, affordable and valuable, that's the whole point. These are free. We're sending out a gift card, and certainly we're going to give some value in today's presentation. So go ahead, Mike, to the next slide. And I just want to show at the bottom here, you should see the link to sign up for our newsletter. This is how we keep you informed of the hot stuff that's coming off the press. These are typically recorded, but we love having the energy in the room. So anything from Power BI, and we can nerd out in Excel spreadsheets and data visualizations, all the way down to if you're doing these meetings and you're recording them, how to maybe even get some evergreen content out of your videos using like YouTube and SEO optimizing those things. So really a gamut of topics. So stay tuned, go to that link, sign up for our newsletter, and we'll keep you informed. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our topic and our speaker for today. So Securely and is going to be presenting with us. So we have a great client success stories hand over fist. We have several client success stories of districts that we work with using Securely to keep kids safe in a modern world. And I know that if you're a parent or an educator, you know that the times have changed. Digital technology into our kids' hands has scaled. And what we're going to cover today is how technology can help scale to keep these kids safe now that we're using them. So Mike Jolley is an award-winning principal. So this is really the views and the vision from someone that is a peer of some of you. And Mike's in North Carolina, where the Venus flytrap grows natively, and joins Securely to champion student safety initiatives. So K through 12 industries and first parent engagement solutions is an expertise of Mike. And he's actually, as an after-school leader, has extensive firsthand experience in managing incidents of student cyberbullying, threats of violence, and self-harm. And I know Mike's going to tell a little bit of that story, so I'm interested in hearing from Mike. I bet you all are too. So without further ado, Mike Jolley, thanks for joining us, and take it away.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate everyone taking time this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are, to join our presentation. So what we want to roll through is just kind of some of the challenges to learning in a modern world. We know over the last year we faced COVID and some other things that have gone on. We also have, we're going to move into student safety and mental health, and how what the trends are there and what the data shows. And then something that's always important, along with student safety and mental health, is student engagement, particularly as more and more districts are moving to a one-to-one scenario, where now, you know, we have devices in the hands of everyone, and how do you help keep the students engaged in what they're doing? You know, as I said in the interview, I'm in the opening, I'm not a tech guy. I'm an educator, even though I work for an ed tech company, student safety company of Securely. I'm still an educator at heart. I spent over 15 years in education, and 10 of those as principal in a pretty large district near Charlotte, North Carolina. And I didn't join a safety company because I got tired of doing things principals do. I absolutely loved it. What caused me to join Securely is some of the things that we're going to talk about today, and want to talk about being proactive and preventing those things. More and more parents, teachers, school administrators, you know, more and more things are coming top of mind when it comes to student safety and mental health. I know one of those things is suicide and self-harm and depression. You know, we know from the CDC that suicide is now the second leading cause of death for middle and high school age students in the United States. We also know that, you know, cyberbullying is rampant, and we know that kids are spending more time than ever, you know, on their devices. So with all those things going on, we want to talk about how Securely can help and make sure we're maintaining, you know, student safety, and giving parents, teachers, administrators, the tools that they need to keep kids safe and engaged. So who is Securely? Securely's been around since 2013. We were founded in San Jose, California. And more importantly, to put in perspective, we serve 10 million students in the United States. And that equates to about 2,600 districts and 15,000 schools. We serve very large districts. We work with Broward County, Florida, with over 300,000 students. We also work with small private schools or charter schools or even small public schools that have 100 students. So the point there is that it doesn't matter how big your district is or how small it is. Securely has a variety of solutions that are going to work for you in doing those things that we mentioned and we'll talk about today. We've also saved over 1,000 lives by allowing schools to get information early on students and be proactive and help provide resources to those students who are in need. And so, as we shift into learning in a modern world, what does that mean? We talk to teachers all the time, we talk to administrators, and over and over and over, we hear about the changes, right? About the only thing consistent is inconsistency, and knowing that there's lots of changes going on. And we saw that with COVID. We saw a lot of schools in the country go fully remote to start the school year or go to a hybrid model. We know that roughly half of all districts in the United States were fully remote or hybrid at the start of the school year. So that posed challenges in and of itself. And even if you were in school and you didn't start the year hybrid or remote, we still know there were some challenges posed there when it comes to student attendance or student absenteeism, which increased during COVID. So there's lots of those things that have had an impact. Again, as we show there, we know that only half of students were in person. And so what that means is the landscape has changed, how you educate changed, how you teach kids. Even if you're remote or not remote, you still saw the impacts of COVID, of everything else that's going on in our country. If you watch the news, COVID isn't the only thing that's going on. And I know for me, as someone in my 40s, this has been a tough year to watch things, politically, socially, health-wise, the economy. Anytime you turn on the news, you see everything that's going on and how it's impacting everybody in our country. So imagine being 13 years old and seeing all this, right? It's much harder for students to handle. And that's one of the reasons that we're seeing an increase in, issues with mental health when it comes to our young people. In fact, there have been lots of articles written over the last 2 to 3 months, and they're all talking about the pending mental health crisis. And looking at data we have at Securely, I can tell you it's not pending, it's here. We see the activities of 10 million students, and we know, and we're able to flesh out things that deal with grief and self-harm and bullying, and they are through the roof. So we know kids are really struggling right now, and so we want to talk about what we can do to help that. So I know kids have been isolated, whether they're at home, even if they're at school. That's still an issue of that feeling, and we know that mental health is always top of mind. I've seen different statistics and different research. As anything, it's always going to vary a little bit, but one of the more consistent things I'm seeing is that around 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 students, school-age students, will experience a diagnosable mental health disorder. Again, 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 students will experience a diagnosable mental health disorder during school, their school career. And that's astonishing as you look at the resources schools have, and in some schools, the lack of resources. But it all boils down to, can you identify, can you give kids help? There are some kids who ask for help. Hey, mom, I need help, right? Whether it's with algebra or whether it's with mental health, some kids have that open line of communication, or they have a trusted mentor or adult in a school they'll talk to. But a lot of kids don't. And we know, according to research, over 60% of kids who are bullying do not report it, right? So we know if they're not going to report being bullied, they certainly may not report, I'm having these feelings of depression, or I want to hurt myself, or I want to hurt others. So that's why it's so important to be able to identify. So let's talk about some of the research right now, and we talk about bullying as the first thing we'll look at. So we know that over 5 million kids skip school due to bullying, right? They don't want to be harassed, and we can understand that. We know almost half, 43% of kids have been bullied online, and 1 in 4 has had it happen more than once, which brings the next point. 81% of young people think bullying online is easier to get away with than bullying in person. And again, we see that at Securely. I refer to that as keyboard courage. You can sit in your room, you can sit in a car, wherever you are, and harass somebody, right? Again, growing up and going to school in the 80s, if there was an issue, if I was being bullied, at least somebody had to bully me to my face, right? They had to say something where I could hear it, do something to me physically. And if I wanted to avoid that, I could walk home a different way. I could move to a different side of the classroom. It's a little easier to avoid then. But now I can be harassed via email, via social media, you name it, right? Text, lots of different electronic ways that a student could be subjected to harassment. And it's not just from a student who's in their class. It could be, harassment from their city, their state, United States, across the world, simply by even liking or retweeting something, or liking something on Instagram or another social media outlet. It's very easy to do, and one of the most powerful examples that I can speak to when it comes from what the impact that cyberbullying and harassment and all these things have on students is, when I was a principal, I had a young lady, and a classmate of hers took a very unflattering photo that the student was not aware of. The student wasn't nude, wasn't anything like that, but it was a very unflattering photo, put a nasty caption to it, posted it up on social media. Within about 10 minutes, someone had seen it. They reported it to us. We worked with the student. The picture, the message was taken down. However, it had been retweeted and liked over 1,000 times. And so in a matter of minutes, 1,000 kids had seen this, and in a way, harass that kid by saying, yes, we agree with this, right? And we want others to see it because we know that opens up the visibility of things. And, sitting with this young woman and sitting with her dad in my office, and she was just, in tears and distraught, and looked at me and said, Mr. Jolley, how can I go in the cafeteria tomorrow? How can I go into class tomorrow, not knowing how many people have actually seen this? And so, it's really tough for students to be able to handle some of these things and process them. We also know that, I'm a parent too. I have 2 daughters, and we see that girls are about twice as likely as boys to be victims and the perpetrators of cyberbullying. And I say that data point to say, if you're an educator, if you're a parent, these are also things to be aware of, that this is impacting girls, young girls, more than it is boys, although boys definitely are not immune to it, and not engaging in it. And we look at it again. We've already said over half of teens have been a victim of this. And we look at some of the different types that we see. Again, any type of the bullying, but there's name calling, spreading rumors, receiving images, the negative messaging, physical threats. So there's simple old school, a text or a message on social media, I'm going to kick your butt, or obviously something more profane, but those things. But there's also lots of other things that are going on, that students are dealing with. And this is all from the Pew Research. And what that means is students who are being subjected to all this have reported they do these things, beginning to use drugs and alcohol, developed an eating disorder. And again, I had a young lady my very first year as a teacher. I had a freshman student in my history class who was struggling with anorexia, and she missed 50 days of a 90-day semester due to the issues and due to the treatments, physical issues, psychological issues. She was getting counseling. She was seeking physical help from some damage that she had done to herself through this. Again, all because she was harassed in middle school, and kids were saying she was overweight. Again, led to this, that has impacted her and her entire family so deeply. So they start skipping class, and we know when kids aren't in class, we know they're not learning, right? One of the biggest predictors that anyone can do when it comes to student achievement and student performance is simply attendance. And we know that students' attendance goes down when they're the victim of this stuff. We have students who engage in self-harm, had suicidal thoughts, and again developed depression. And that speaks to that stat from the CDC that suicide is now the 2nd leading cause of death for middle and high school age students. So again, we know it's just been a mess the last year. It's been really hard for kids to deal with. There are lots of new challenges for school, and kids are on screen time more than ever, which means they're have the potential to be harassed, more than ever through technology, and also opened up to other dangers of technology as well, not just harassment. There have been some cases right here in North Carolina where students were through their school device, they had predators access the students and gain their trust, and ended up kidnapping a student, taking them to a different state. So again, all these things, are challenges through school devices and technology. And I want to be very clear: schools going one-to-one, school sending devices home, it's an amazing thing. I'm a huge proponent. I wish as a student I would have had access to all of the technology and the good that comes with it that my own daughters have. But there's also the downside, right? There's lots of things that you need to be aware of. And so let's talk about how Securely can help. First, this is really important for parents. So everything we do is going to benefit the school, but I want to specifically start with how we help parents. We have an app, and this app is free for any district that is using Securely's web filter. Again, we're a student safety company. We start that by filtering the devices. The government about 20 years ago passed the Child Internet Protection Act, and they said when districts are providing internet access devices to students, you have to make sure you have a way to keep the kids off pornography and drugs and gambling. And so that's kind of how how web filtering companies for schools got started. And so that's that at the core, that's what Securely did, and that was the first product we had, was a web filter. Well, we take that data and we show that data to parents through an app. So as a parent, I may ask my kid, and again, I'm a curriculum nerd. I love teaching and learning. It's why I became a principal. I get really excited thinking about that. And so when my girls get in the car after school, hey girls, what'd you learn today? And they look at me and say, nothing, Dad. And I know that's not true. They have incredible teachers, but I also know I talked to parent after parent after parent for years who would say, look, how do I get my kid to open up? How do I see what they're learning? I don't want to email the teacher every single day. Well, this app is a great way. So we have an activity feed that shows parents 30 days of their kids' data. And this is not about spying on your kid. It's not about not trusting your kid. Your students, your children are learning to use the internet. And I think it's a school's responsibility as well as a parent to make sure students understand the dangers that are out there and how to use it appropriately, just like driving a car. When my daughters are old enough to drive a car, they're going to have a learner's permit. I'm going to sit in the passenger seat and we're driving along the road. And if I see them start to swerve and I see a tree coming up that they're going to hit, I'm not going to let them hit the tree to teach them a lesson. I'm going to grab the wheel and I'm going to straighten out the car. And this is kind of along the same lines. As a parent, you can see the history, you see what they're searching for. It's great. You can see what they're learning. But if you see some concerning things, right, not just a blocked attempt to go to Instagram or a blocked attempt to go to Facebook, but if I see kids searching for things like, how do I kill myself? Can I overdose on, X, Y, and Z, right? There are lots of things students do that are indicative that they do want to hurt themselves. And you know what? They turn to Google. We at Securely call Google the source of truth because, a kid may lie to a parent, lie to a school administrator, lie to whoever, but when they need to know something, they turn to Google and they're very specific. And there's lots of different reasons why they might want to know something. It might be because something piqued their interest on a TV show or a movie, right? So just because a kid searches, how do I kill myself, or what are the most common ways of suicide, it doesn't mean they're thinking about hurting themselves, just may be curious. However, we think a parent should know, we think a school should know if they're doing those searches, because an adult needs to find out why it is. So is it for a class? Is it for a research project? Is it because you saw something that made you curious? Or are you having some issues? Is something going on that's causing that? So that shows up in the activity feed, and you'll see we have flagged activity, which again is going to flag those items that deal with self-harm, suicide, violence, bullying. And this really gives parents information in real time so they can connect with their kids if there are things that are concerning. And again, it's not just about the bad stuff. It's not about connecting when you see a blocked site or a flagged site for something dealing with self-harm or depression. When I see my kids on task, it's, hey, great, really proud. I saw you were, on X, Y, and Z today. I saw you went to Quizlet. Tell me about that. Did you take a practice test? So really great ways to engage in all sorts of things through this app. And the other big thing that schools have said over the last couple of years, and parents, that a challenge is the screen time, right? It's my kid's on a device all day at school, then they come home and they're on a device all day. I don't want my kid on the device all night. I don't want to have to pry the device out of their hands. So we allow parents to go in and actually set screen time rules. There's a pause button where they can pause that device in real time. There's also a way where they can set a recurring schedule at night, so they don't have to worry about pausing and unpausing. They can say, hey, at 9 o'clock at night, your Chromebook becomes a paperweight. It's not going to access the internet, and it won't access the internet until the next morning at 7 a.m. So lots of really neat ways, and they can also block sites in addition to what the school blocks. So when the kid's at home, they can block Facebook, they can block YouTube, things that may not be bad sites, but the student may be wasting time. So that's the first piece. Well, then we get into more of student communications. We know that students are using school communication more than ever. And when I say that, they're using email. They're using online, like Google Docs, online documents. They're doing things in Drive. And we know that students write suicide notes in school email. Students write suicide notes in Google Docs. Students bully students, threaten students through these things as well. So Securely has industry-leading artificial intelligence that also looks at these. So as a web filter, we're seeing their searches, the sites they visit, the videos they watch, and we're getting one piece of the picture. We get the other piece of the picture by all the communications they do, meaning the emails, the Google Docs, things they create there. It'll work with Microsoft Office 365 as well. It's not just Google-based. We can do either one of those. But again, we're looking at, for sentiment, right? So a perfect example is a student who emails out, I can't take this anymore, I want to end it all. Right? There's no keyword in there, there's nothing that says death or suicide, but because we use artificial intelligence, we get the context, and you'll see there under the description of auditor, it said get alerts based on context, not just keywords. So again, the second a kid hits that email, it's going to go right out to the administrator. So you'll see we use that auditor, and that's going to look at Gmail, it's going to look at Office 365, it's also going to scan Docs and Drive, it's going to look at comments on that. I know one of the newer trends we've seen over the last year or two is a group of kids creating a Google Doc. They share it with each other, and they think they can say whatever they want, and they think they can use things like white font and in other ways that the school can't see it. But we're going to see everything. We're monitoring everything, and then we're letting the school know when there are things that they need to be aware of, meaning stuff related to bullying, self-harm, and violence. We also scan their drives for nude images. And the reason we do that is because more and more and more kids don't understand what's connected to what, and bing, bang, boom, now all of a sudden there's a nude picture of a student. And it may be self-generated, it may not be, but regardless, it's on a school's network, and that's something that would need to be detected and addressed very quickly. So again, we do scan. So if a student uploads an image, we're scanning that with our image scanning artificial intelligence, and we're sending out an alert to the technology staff to say, hey, here's something you definitely need to look at. You can also send these alerts out. So if there's any technology staff folks on this call, we know that the training that the technology team receives is different than what counselors and principals receive. So we allow you to delegate all of these alerts. So alerts that are coming when a kid does a search related to bullying or self-harm or violence. If they send out a tweet, if they send an email, something in a Google Doc, all these alerts that go out in real time can go right to the principal, right to the counselor, anybody you want at the school level, and you can even set how sensitive these things are. As I start talking about artificial intelligence, one of the most common questions is, well, or comments is, well, AI is not perfect. And we know that, right? There's no perfect science to doing this, but we know our AI is over 80% accurate. But you can, as a school, set the confidence score between a 1 and a 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the higher you get, the more confidence we have that it's an accurate alert. So you can set it as sensitive as you want. So if you want to know every single little thing that we detect that may be related to bullying, self-harm, or violence, you can set it at a 1 and get that. If you only want the level 5s, meaning the stuff we are very certain, again, not 100%, but we're very certain this is going to be something you need to investigate, you set it at a 5, or you can set it in between. So lots of control in the configurations that you would have there. Next, we have a team of 24 analysts. So this is our 24 solution, because we know these, I just told you, principals can get alerts, counselors can get alerts, social workers, the people that are there to look after the safety and well-being of their kids. But at the same time, there are times during the school day when those folks can't check their email, right? There are lots of times that I can tell you as a former principal, you just can't get to your email right now. And it may be an hour or two before you do, and you don't want an emergency alert sitting there. Also, you have a right to sleep at night. You have a right to do things on the weekend, right? So we have a team of 24/7 analysts that'll watch over your data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And with the help of our tool that we call At Risk for the 24 team, they are able to see all these alerts. And if there is something that rises up, let's say 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a student who just wrote a suicide note saying, to a teacher, thank you for caring about me. You're the only adult that ever, took an interest in me, but I am going to kill myself, and again, I don't say that any kind of um, jest, right? Those are the real type of things we've seen in securely over the last 7, 8 years. So if that goes out at 2 a.m., if you're the principal and you wake up at 7 and you have that alert and that student harmed themselves, you would be heartbroken. The family, anybody involved, obviously heartbroken in this tragedy. So we have that team 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that is going in and seeing what they do. So that's kind of to recap the student mental health and safety. We know kids are online more than ever. We know cyberbullying is increasing, which means self-harm, mental health issues, all those are increasing. And Securely has some really great tools as a student safety company to help. We give parents visibility through a parent app. We have the cloud web-based filter that's going to allow the district to see what those kids are doing, the sites they're visiting, and not just looking at just the sites and what they're searching and the videos we're watching. We're looking for indications of bullying, self-harm, and violence and sending those alerts. We also have the ability to monitor their email and their Google Drive or Microsoft. Again, we can send out those alerts to what they're doing and make sure the school knows in real time. And then last, we have the 24 service that I just mentioned, where we have people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week watching over this data. And if there is something that rises to the case of an emergent situation, they can immediately reach out. So the last portion of the webinar that we're going to look at is engaged, right? We talk about keeping students safe and engaged in the modern world, and this is the engagement piece. When districts go one-to-one, teachers say it's great, we love these tools, but it's really hard to teach when you're looking at the back of 35 devices, right? They've got the laptop, you're the teacher, you're staring at the kid's face, but they're looking at the screen, you can't see it. And we had a lot of teachers say kids became more off task than ever because think about it, you've got this device here and I'm supposed to be on this website, but you know what, I want to go here. I want to go to ESPN, or I've got this game that I want to play. And it's not going to be blocked because it's not pornography, it's not adult content, but it's something that's going to waste your time and distract you from learning. So Securely Classroom at a high level allows teachers to guide their classroom, meaning push the URLs to them, create a collection of sites, and actually lock their screen. So if I'm a teacher and I've got 35 kids and I'm looking at the back of the screen, or if we're remote or hybrid and those kids are across town, I can still have a way of controlling what they're doing on that device. I can create a collection and say, hey guys, today we're doing a history assignment and these are the 10 sites you need to go to. I push those sites out and that's the only place those kids can go for the day. I can also monitor their activity, so I can view every student's screen in real time if I need to. You'll see there's an example of the screen pulled out where I can say, hey, that doesn't look like what we're supposed to be learning. And so I can review, I can get a report of what they did during the day, I can view them, I can even close that tab in real time. One of my favorite data points that we share with our customers when we meet once a quarter to show them, it's an impact report, it's how is your district using Securely, what sites are your kids going to, what are the most common blocks we see and all that. One of my favorite data points to share is how many tabs they've closed. What I mean by that is this is a teacher who looks at their control panel and sees, here's 2 kids that are wildly off task. They can hit a button and all of a sudden that tab closes for that kid. The teacher didn't have to stop teaching the class. They didn't have to call the kid out and embarrass them. They just simply push a button and that tab is closed. So really nice ways. And again, we've done that millions and millions of times over the last year. Students have been learning remote around the country. And again, it's not just a remote feature. If students are sitting in front of you, it's still a very useful tool. The third part is the ability to communicate directly with the class. So a kid can raise their hand by pushing a button if they want to ask a question to you, and they can even ask via two-way chat. If they, let's say I'm a student and I don't want to seem like I don't know what I'm doing to my classmates, right? We know that's a real challenge to getting kids to participate. With Securely Classroom, kids can go in and just start a two-way chat with a teacher, and that way, if they don't know something or if they're worried about asking a question that's embarrassing, they don't have to worry about doing that in front of the class. And teachers can also make announcements this way. So again, we go into remote learning. We know that there's some needs for classes in schools, like monitoring for kids off task and restricting access, pushing resources and directly guiding what they're learning. We know there's some different needs for remote learning, like making sure they have the resources they need and being available, spotting when students need help, and most importantly, communications. Well, those are all things that are available. So whatever your needs are in class, whatever they are remote, even though they're a little different, they can still be handled by Securely Classroom. Also, as I mentioned, things are changing rapidly. So we do have an amazing development team who is able to keep up with that speed and the changing needs of schools. So as schools needed change with COVID and going remote, we're able to come out and create, now there's a notification when the student starts a chat, larger images with faster screen updates if a kid opens a new tab, thumbnails and chat windows, allowing students to initiate. Again, these are all things that when students shifted to remote in half the schools in the country, we quickly created additional tools that were going to help them be more successful in what they were doing. You'll see there we're continuing to monitor the changing landscape. We're looking at user behavior, so we're seeing what student patterns are. We're listening to teachers. We're listening to parents. One of my favorite things as a parent and as a former teacher and principal is sending out our parent survey to see what the parents like about the app, what they need with the app, what they want to do. And as a matter of fact, that pause button came directly from parent feedback, where they said, look, we love this, but sometimes I just need to hit a button and turn off the internet for my kid so I can talk to them so they'll listen without having to pry a device from their hand. So again, we do take all that. We have teacher committees. We have a committee that's made up of superintendents and technology directors that we meet with once a month, and when we share new ideas, we get feedback. So we're really pride ourselves at Securely and be able to move quickly as things change into new trends or new things that need to be addressed in education. So with that, I try to keep that at 30 minutes and was right at that. I know I went over a lot of stuff, but ultimately, our main goals at Securely, the student safety company, are to keep kids safe and engaged. We have a variety of ways to keep them safe. We have an amazing tool with our classroom, also an MDM. That's great. All those things will work together. You can consolidate lots of different resources you're using into one, put everything under one umbrella, and do things to keep kids safe and engaged. So with that, I want to start the Q&A. So I'll open it up there. You can type. I do have the chat box open. So if you want to, type in a question, you can do that. You also should have the ability, if you would like to unmute, and Mike could correct me if I'm wrong, but they should be able to unmute if they want to ask a question that way. But we do want to open it up now for Q&A.
Yeah, everyone should be able to unmute themselves.
Great.
And the chat is open.
And while you're thinking of questions, I know I went through a lot of information in half an hour. Some of the most common questions we get when we work with schools and we do presentations, we will start with the filter. A lot of schools say, yeah, but we don't just use Chromebooks, we use iPads, we use MacBooks, we have Windows devices. I want to be very clear that our filter, it's cloud-based, and we have actually a patented product called SmartPack. We also have a Chrome extension, so we can filter any device you have. It doesn't matter the type of device you use. It doesn't matter the mix. You can have a totally mixed environment of devices, and we're able to provide those filtering services for them. Another question is, they want to ensure we can not just filter on site, but when the devices go home. And we can absolutely filter that device. Actually, our slogan is kind of any device, anywhere, meaning it doesn't matter, iPad, MacBook, Chromebook, doesn't matter the device, and doesn't matter where they are. If they're online at McDonald's on that device, if they're at Starbucks, if they're at their grandmother's house, a friend's house, if they're at school, any device, anywhere, we're able to filter that. Another common question we get is about the parent app. A lot of schools say, how do we get this set up? Is that hard to do? We don't want to spend a lot of time. And the answer is we have a SIS agnostic process, which means doesn't matter if you're using PowerSchool or Aries or Infinite Campus, we have a way where you can set a script and you can upload all of your parents, and we'll kick out a nice little welcome email that allows parents to take it or leave it. And if they want to use the app, great. If they don't, that's up to them. Again, it's a free resource, but that automated enrollment process essentially allows you to set it and forget it. And when new parents come to the district, they get an email that says, hey, do you want securely? When kids leave the district, their account gets deactivated. So it's a very easy process for getting this set up. Yes, can you talk a little bit about make your product different or better than Bark? Yes, so in specifically, we have a much different business model than Bark, where we're not selling things to parents. We are school only, and a couple key differences are one, with our 24 analysts. So I mentioned that ability to have the 24-hour monitoring from safety analysts. These are trained professionals. These are when we hire the 24 team, we look for people with backgrounds in law enforcement, psychology, social work, school counseling. So we have a team. In other words, we have people who know when kids are crying out for help. Another thing, we've done this for much longer than Bark, so we are a fully, if you will, baked out solution that allows us to have made several improvements, particularly with the way we filter devices. When we talk to people who have used other solutions, and not just Bark, but they've used other solutions that filter, and again, not here to trash any solution, right? Anybody who's out there trying to keep kids off bad stuff and keep kids safe, I have respect for, just highlighting some of those differences. But it's the way that we use AI to categorize our sites. We have a tool called PageScan that is obviously new sites are created every single day, right? Can't even imagine the amount of new sites. And so as kids are trying to branch out and find things that are circumvent the filter and get to new sites that are blocked, we have artificial intelligence that is scanning those and creating that way to categorize them, to make sure that those even new sites that nobody's ever heard of that just popped up yesterday, to make sure that they're categorized, and that if the district wants to block things in that category like drugs or hate, that those things are in fact blocked. But I would say also with that, been lots of questions about hate groups. That's why I specifically use that example about through other filters and solutions that don't have an automated way to categorize things. They just rely on solely on third-party lists. That our way just allows us to make sure that there's more stuff getting scanned and we're keeping kids off of the bad.
Well, I was just going to say, I think we like it when we're timely and concise. So if there aren't any further questions, that's no problem. What will happen next is Melina will send out a survey, and that's how we can get your gift card too. We really appreciate everyone's time. Your time is valuable, and we want to make the most of it. So if you have any questions, please follow up with Melina's survey. She'll be happy to get the right answer to you, and we can help you learn more about this particular topic or whatever next is on your mind. So I would like to extend a big thank you to Mike. This was a really well put together presentation. I know you're the pro and you've brought a lot of insight from your history as a principal that, that is very unique and brings a lot to the table. So a round of applause.
I enjoyed the opportunity.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that email from Melina, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next month at our next free client event. This is Micah signing off.